I'm joined by political analyst Karim Boulos to break down Quebec's budget, the final one for the CAQ before the election in the fall. Thank you so much for joining us, Karim.
My pleasure.
What's your reaction to Quebecers who earn under $100,000 a year getting $500 in their pockets or $1,000 per eligible couple?
As I like to call it, it's a campaign budget. It's clearly, 6-7 months out of an election campaign. The irony of Mr. Girard buying running shoes to get ready to go door to door to campaign for his seat is very symbolic. I think, the $500 per family, per giving out to Quebecers for their needs to cope or try to cope with rising inflation is not a surprise by anybody's imagination. What is a surprise, however, is the notion that, COVID is gone, but not gone. We have $1 billion set aside for eventually dealing with the healthcare system, but we have $1.7 billion set aside for future waves of COVID. That's very interesting. So yes, we care about inflation. That is a concern. We want to keep the economy going, but we still know in the back of our minds that we have a problem with the healthcare system.
So which files are the big winners and what's missing in the budget?
Interestingly, Mr. Legault ran his campaign last time on the future of Quebec, and the future of Quebec being in education. And yet you hear nothing about education. You don't hear about schools. We don't talk about ventilation in schools, renovating schools that are completely out of date and out of tune with what is required in a 2022 economy. I think we have a problem with our school system, from the facilities all the way through to recruiting teachers, and that's completely missed. The winner, on the other hand, is the healthcare system to an extent. We're acting reactively to potential future waves of COVID, but we're not really planning for a complete overhaul or at least a rethink of the healthcare system, which is the whole basis for why we had curfews and limitations and restrictions in Quebec far more than anywhere else in the country or even in North America.
Was this what you were expecting for a final CAQ budget? And what kind of message does this budget send to Quebecers?
So I think the key here is, Mr. Legault is pandering to his base, which is outside of the city of Montreal. He is trying to secure his regional vote, which brought him to power in the first place. And so I think that we're seeing more of the same to ensure that, the message is clearly COVID is over. Our government is doing well financially. We have enough money to throw back billions in the form of $500 a person. But really, there's nothing big, nothing new, nothing bold or audacious in the budget. It's a safe budget. It's an electoral budget, which is trying to basically win votes. And I would say outside of Montreal, nothing local, because it doesn't address the realities of public transit. In fact, they even reduced the contribution to hybrid or electric vehicles that's been brought from 8,000 to 7,000. So overall, I think the message is clear: is that we're trying to secure our base outside of Montreal, and we're trying to throw a few tokens your way to try to remind you that, hey, we took care of COVID. Think of us in October.
Thank you so much for joining us, Karim.
My pleasure.